Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Eigner, and this is an analysis of Jerry Covell from the recently produced documentary film, Deaf President Now. This film shows a lot of emotions and displays multiple topics learned from Psychology 132. I focused on the person Jerry Covell, who plays himself in the film. He is a person of varying emotions. He was born into a deaf family and is deaf himself. Jerry has many attributions that represent him and are shown in the film. Jerry is deaf. He is an activist who will take charge for what he believes is right. This is shown multiple times throughout his contributions towards the movement at Gallaudet University to get a deaf president instead of a hearing one. He is a collectivist. He likes to get involved with others. He feels as if there are many people needed in order to get something big achieved. Deaf culture is very much based on togetherness and functions very well in groups, especially when there is a problem that needs fixing. Jerry is very strong in what he does. His signing is very powerful and will get the message across very easily because of how expressive he is. Everyone in the movie is visual and will show how they feel. Deaf culture is one of the most visual cultures out there. This is mainly because if they can't tell others what they know by verbally saying it, they will have to show it. The first course learning outcome is the contributions of basic psychological processes to in-group relations, ethnocentrism, and stereotyping. To start, I'll talk about in-group relations. They play a big part in who somebody is as an individual, as well as what they are or can be in a group setting. Jerry Covell understands that for there to be an improvement, there has to be more than just him. Close to the very beginning of the documentary, there is a video of Jerry standing on a chair or a high place, and with only one sign, he signed the word sit, and he repeated it a couple times, and within a couple seconds, he had an entire crowd sitting down in the middle of the street so that one of the other student leaders could sign to everyone the plan and to calm down so that they could focus on the message they wanted to convey to the hearing community. Within the deaf community, it is normal to take turns and focus on what a person is trying to communicate so you understand the entire message. By the crowd sitting down or getting lower to the ground allowed further communication to the entire group instead of just the ones in front. Jerry is very involved in his community, and it shows. I do want to focus on one word from the learning outcome: ethnocentrism. The word ethnocentrism has to have its own slide in order for the people who will see the documentary and see this presentation to understand that the idea of the entire movement was not only for the deaf people to get a deaf president and have the highest person in the school be deaf, but for the deaf community to be able to feel as if they are equal enough towards hearing people for them to be seen as such. Throughout the documentary, the main point is to not make the viewers see deaf people as ethnocentric, but to see them at the same as human. See them as same to the hearing people and to be seen as human. The film shows the hardships and misunderstandings the deaf community has to go through on the daily basis, even to this day. When a running of 3 candidates for Gallaudet University were presented and 2 were deaf, with only 1 being hearing, and the only hearing person won the candidacy to represent the deaf community at Gallaudet University, that can make an entire community and culture just feel absolutely belittled. They didn't feel that the hearing community allowed them to be in charge because they feel as if deaf people can't be in a position of power. So that ethnocentrism was coming from the hearing community this entire time. Well, moving on to the course learning outcome, number 8, to describe the processes of categorization, memory, selective attention, and attributional bias affect the development of stereotypes. For this one, the focus will be stereotypes. Many hearing people put deaf people in bad categories, such as different, dumb, or unable. These words are just to tear down others for being different. Personal bias in political positions can hurt so many. The more quote-unquote normal people that support negative personal bias, the worse it is for the people the bias is against. Stereotypes that are made against deaf people make them look like they can't do anything in the hearing world. Jerry and the deaf community are always being told and shown they can't. So at the end of the documentary, now that Jerry was being interviewed and is now older, he made up his own sign for the word can. He took his index finger and went up instead of down. The word can't in American Sign Language is where you slap your moving hand index finger into your steady hand index finger, going down, going negative, so you can't. So what he did was the same thing, just with his moving index finger going up to represent growth and that you can, and to prove that in the end, with enough grit and representation, deaf people, in fact, can. Moving on to the last course learning outcome, I'd like to focus on the cultural influences on concepts of self and personality. This learning outcome narrows down on the idea that the kind of self-identity and personality you have as a child is gained from culture and will transfer to who you are as an adult. The way culture affects you as a person depends on how you were raised. For Jerry, he defends this idea because in the deaf culture, if you were born into a family with deaf parents, like Jerry, you were raised with a set of values that are used to not being the same. The kind of culture can lead to 2 different outcomes. You can either be a very strong individual and stand your ground in who you are, to not let others walk all over you just because you are deaf, or the opposite can happen. You can just accept the cards you've been dealt with and allow others to keep you down and not try to defend who you are as a person. But Jerry's parents were both deaf and they did not allow others to tell them what to do. This environment that Jerry grew up in allowed him to be open, to be loud and expressive in who he was and what he wanted. The culture he had around him from a young age transferred throughout his adulthood. That is one of the main reasons why he was such an important member of the group of 4 students who were declared student bodies and made the decisions on what they were going to do in order to get a deaf president for Gallaudet University. This is the group of 4 students who were interviewed and led the students at the University of Gallaudet. In order from right to left, we have Jerry Covell. He was the one in the maroon shirt who I focused on in this presentation. And then we have Brigitta Bourne, Greg Hillebach, and Tim Rars. And I'm sorry if I've mispronounced any of these first or last names. Thank you so very much for listening to this presentation. I hope some of you guys have learned something about the deaf community and have learned what it's like to be deaf and how one small decision that hearing people make for who's going to run a deaf school can create such a huge impact and make a movement on the deaf community and show how the deaf community can use their collectivistic culture and come together to get an outcome that they wanted. And this is my works cited page. If you guys have any questions, I will be very open. Just let me know. Thank you guys for listening.